Arsenal 4. Tottenham Hotspur 198th North London derby. John Champion had a great line before this one. He called Arsenal and Spurs unwanted rivals. The streets are our own, as North London forever claims. Arsenal had all the wind in their sails before this one. Spurs, though, remember this. Despite not winning at Arsenal in 15 seasons, they've been perfect on their road travels this season. That was the story going into this, but the story was also who was not there. So many injuries on both sides, undermined by the loss of Gabriel Finak on international duty. We'll have him out until after Christmas. His absence a blow, really like food poisoning, impacts Arsenal at both ends. The back line, but also his head, that inspirational source of set-piece goals. In came Piero Hincapié, thrown in for his first start, but it was Arsenal attacking in waves. Spurs tried to neutralise it by all means necessary. The first 20-25 minutes, were, history will forget, pretty unwatchable.
They were completely atrocious. It was that kind of war of attrition style of football that the Premier League is producing more and more at the moment, and is not really ideal. And look, from Spurs' point of view, given the way it played out, that will be held against Thomas Frank. Basically, if you're an away team in a big game against a major side, derby or not, you want nothing to happen for the first 20 or 25 minutes. That is in your interest. And they did it. Did they do it well? They did it reasonably well.
And when Arsenal have needed massive goals this season, it's often been an unexpected gentleman. A gentleman that was always discarded. And here it was Mourinho who found him with a pass which was like, it was like listening to Marvin Gaye's Sexual Healing in its entirety, Raw.
It was an incredible ball from a player who doesn't get enough credit for the creative side of his game. Mourinho is seen as kind of as a battering ram, I guess, someone who can play either as a defensive midfielder or as I'd say false nine, but it's not really a false nine. He's just a defensive midfielder playing as a striker. But there's a subtlety and a delicacy to him as well. He is, after all, a Spanish midfielder.
Yeah, God bless Trossard. That man loves a North London derby goal. Dude's been involved in 4 goals, I think, in his last 4 games. The spin, the footwork, the deflection. Trossard, am I like being hyperbolic, knee-jerk, just reacting to a moment? To me, he's quietly turning into a superstar of Arsenal season.
Yeah, unexpected superstar, as you say. I would quibble a little bit with the defending on this goal. He did seem to have 2 or 3 minutes to turn around in the box, which, as I understand it, is not ideal. But still, he took the goal really well. I think there's something really uplifting about Trossard's story, because, as you say, I think very few Arsenal fans would have mourned his departure, particularly. Yeah. There was this sort of sense that the club, I guess, had almost outgrown him, that he'd been useful for a while, and yet Trossard has not only kind of knuckled down and been involved, he's probably one of the first choice players now. He was possibly Arsenal's most informed player as an attacking force. He looks creative and inventive, he slots in so neatly, he's really flexible, adaptable. He gives them so much kind of intelligence, I think. He's hard to drop for Arteta at the moment.
Arsenal suddenly freed from desire. Within 5 minutes, they scored again. Rice bumped one into Eze in the box. Created separation from, was it 3 Spurs defenders? Like a man who'd learnt the game playing cage football. Drove the ball, like Spandau Ballet's true. Through the scrum. Struck again from almost an identical spot. 36 seconds into the second half. Edge of the area. Balance. Confidence. Clinicality. You don't see this reaction often. Smiling like a kid who loves the Arsenal. So Roy, in that moment, under the floodlights, his first North London derby, this was epic Greek poetry.
It was, and there's something so powerful about Eze's story, because a lot of players lose their affiliations, that they support a team as a kid. But instead, Eze, I think, got in touch with Arsenal on the cusp of that Spurs deal going through, just to say, look, are you sure you don't want me to come back? I want to come back. Arsenal said, yes, they do the deal, and he gets to live out this dream. And it's really powerful that everything he's been through, he still has that childlike love for the team he supports. We like to think that that's how it normally works, but it really isn't. It's incredibly rare that he still feels like that about a football team.
Especially because he'd been chewed up and ground down by the business side of football. So to retain that naivete, that childish fandom, that true Arsenal spirit, we saw it when he walked down the tunnel in his jeans with the Arsenal jersey on the first day of the season. There's a true passion. Football is like life, but better. And that's what we witnessed in that moment. There's also a moment of peak Spurs. Richarlison, I love you forever, Richie, striking that low drive, catching out Raya from 35 yards. But as great as the goal was, I think more impressive, raw humanly, was that Richarlison resisted the urge to whip his shirt off and do the chicken dance.
What's the best goal that's ever been scored that is completely pointless? Does that Richarlison goal has to be up there? It was a brilliant goal. Just the invention, the immediate kind of spontaneous imagination to do it, the precision that you need to put it in that little postage stamp where Raya can't get it, but ultimately all in a completely futile endeavour. It might be my goal of the season.
Eze, though, had the last laugh. Of course he did, scoring his hat-trick. Eze, like Sunday morning, kept his head as the bodies, I'd say, flew around him. But it was really flung themselves past him, almost from the identical spot. Really amazing scenes. Mikel Arteta talked about Eze. I mean, he talked about how he's added aura to the Arsenal team, which was a bit like me saying, just by pouring some water into the Atlantic Ocean, I've added water. I don't think there's a more aura-filled team in the Premier League than Arsenal Football Club.
Not at the moment, certainly, but Eze has... I don't know if maybe aura is not the word I'd use, but I think he has given them a real jolt of energy and belief and a different kind of feel, because Eze's kind of telling his own story. He's a different chapter, he's a different subject, it's a whole different thing happening with Eberechi Eze. And that, I think, has changed the feeling around Arsenal a little bit. But also, he's given them a different creative fulcrum. They're not as reliant on Saka, they're not as reliant on Odegaard didn't play yesterday. I think that he more than anybody, we've talked a lot about the depth at Arsenal this season, Rog, but Eze kind of demonstrates it. He's a game changer that they can deploy, and that gives them that extra weapon, that extra confidence that whatever happens, they will find a way through.
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable listening to him post-game. He talked about how he prayed on this, and that God delivered. He is truly, genuinely a man of faith. Again, listen to the interview where he talks about it on Men in Blazers. It's really amazing to witness how this man maintained an inner confidence when football really crushed it out of him. And then he walked the hard miles. He really did, with that faith, with that belief, with his family, with tenacity. And I look at Eze and I think, God, you can be rewarded in life for doing those things. But I also look at him, Rory, in that moment, as I think it was Declan Rice pushed him to receive the accolades from the Arsenal faithful, and he just pointed up and told them there's one God, there's one God. There's that story, but there's also a true footballing story. You see the error margin of the talent spotters at the elite level, Rory. It's razor thin.
Yeah, and I do wonder whether sometimes players need that rejection as their fuel. That there are lots and lots of players who, maybe not quite as extreme as Eze, but who fell out of one academy and went to another and then developed there, or fell down the leads a little bit. There are plenty of different pathways into elite football. I do think it probably has a character building element to it. So Eze will be made stronger by all of the hardship in a professional sense that he's faced, by all of those rejections, all of those doubts, all of those worries. That has forged who he is and what he is. And I suspect that is part of why he is where he is.
Amen. At Bill Edgar Times tweeted, Eberechi Eze, first player with a palindromic surname to score a top-flight hat-trick since Albert Mallam for Huddersfield against Liverpool in 1934. You just knew Eze, of all people, total Wordle freak, undoubtedly, just lived to break that record. Let's talk about Spurs, though. Problem. They were so bloody feeble. I wonder how much regret Thomas Frank has about setting up so negatively, because there was a spell just after Richie's goal. Well, there weren't exactly shots on target, but Spurs did take the game to Arsenal briefly, found out they could. And we forget in this narrative the absences, the injuries. I love Thomas Frank. I really do. I love his brain. I love his empathy. He said it takes time. For his, he came on our show. He told everybody when he took over, it takes my processes take a moment. I see the injuries he has. No Maddison, no Kulusevski, no Solanke. So after the game, he said, I want to apologise to the fans. We're disappointed. We're unhappy in the performance today. Definitely a lot to work on still. It's worth remembering. This was his key line that's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. We finished 17th last season. It is a contextual football. We don't like to remember the 17th. We don't like to remember the injuries. How much collateral damage does this result do to the goodwill around this regime?
Yeah, I think one of the issues that all fans have is we do live in that moment. We respond to the stimulus that's directly in front of us, and it takes a while where you are capable of thinking, once the dust has settled and your core body temperature has cooled down, you are you are capable of thinking, okay, I can kind of rationalise this in a way that makes it comprehensible, maybe not acceptable or maybe not pleasant, but certainly comprehensible. And Thomas Frank is right to do that. But I think he is proof of one of the weird complexities of managing a team like Tottenham, like Arsenal, like Chelsea or Liverpool or Man United or whoever it is.
Like a football team.
A major football team that has aspirations that could look in the wrong context like delusions. There are kind of points for style, that if the football you play is decreed not attractive, despite the fact that is clearly a subjective categorisation, then it makes it a much harder sell to the fans when you lose. And so the weird thing about Spurs' season so far under Frank is that their lead position has throughout been pretty good. Their home form's been terrible, their away form's been excellent, but the majority of their fans are not seeing them in the flesh play well at home. But for that to kind of be viable long term, you probably can't go and get smashed in the North London derby. You probably need to at least put up a fight to give your fans something to complain about. A bad refereeing decision, a mistake, a player that they can direct their fury on.
Tottenham almost have a version of that where it's like to lose without magic, without surprise or beauty, is worse than winning. And that is, I think, the unforgivable sin. I admire it. I mean, it's so baked into their DNA, just the notion of Tottenham style. And to lose without style is probably the unforgivable sin. Let's have a quick button up of Arsenal, very quick, Raw. The biggest North London derby win, I think, in 13 years. All the goals from open play. Phenomenal performance. 6-point lead at the top of the table. None of the injuries of key players become the narrative. What amazes me about the culture there, because this is hard. Every single player can fit in and up the intensity of all those around them. They don't detract. Players are able to just slide in, replace mainstays without a speed bump.
Yeah, and that's the depth that they've kind of built over the last year, this summer in particular, bringing in those players to mean that they can take out, slot in, and replace and go without noticing it. But it's also, as you say, it's testament to the culture that Arteta's built. There's a real determination and grit and grizzle about Arsenal at the moment. They look like they are not going to let this one slip. They're not going to make it 4 in a row. They're not going to fall short again. I don't know whether they sense an opportunity because City and Liverpool keep slipping, maybe. I think they're very much of the view that they have agency in this whole situation, that this is their season, it's for them to decide what happens, and they're playing like that.
Yeah, there's someone on their Instagram said, Rog, you've got a secret soft spot for Arsenal. What I'd say is, I admire coming second 3 years on the run and still find the tenacity, the togetherness, the focus. It's like Sisyphus we're watching roll the rock finally to the top of the mountain, and I think it's humanly magnificent, and that's what I admire. I say, Arsenal fans, savour that Spurs and Freude, you Gooners,